There's currently a huge craze for mini kitchen gardens. Find out how to make the most of your balcony. Flowers on the balcony, nothing new about that. But nowadays, this small area can be both practical and pleasant when used as a kitchen garden to grow fruit and vegetables.
Rosemary, thyme, sorrel, a little bit of rocket. And above that we have a fig tree. And here we have a vine.
No more than 5 square meters of available space to create a patch of garden in a very barren world. City dwellers like Antoine are discovering the joy of growing their own vegetables, albeit in small quantities.
There's not enough to be able to eat them all the time, but they give me more pleasure than the vegetables I buy at the supermarket. It's just a balcony, but as you can see, we can fit quite a lot in and vary what we grow depending on the season.
These mini kitchen gardens can now be found at the market, in the middle of all the traditional fruit and vegetable stalls. Sandrine's stand. This garden lover has become an expert on these small-scale gardens. Those are strawberry plants. This is the Gariguette strawberry. It's a seasonal fruit. Parsley, dill, thyme, lavender, plus broad beans and radishes, all organic. I like presenting the plants already as a mini kitchen garden. We can look at it as an ecological garden, work on the concept of marrying the plants. For example, the strawberry goes very well with the thyme, and we can match up the broad beans with the lettuce. And why not take the environmentally friendly approach one step further by making one's own compost, even in the city? In this Parisian block of 560 apartments, some of the residents put their organic waste into these containers.
Fruit and vegetable peelings. Here we have the remains of some onions. Ground up eggshells. They must be ground up. It's estimated that 30% of our waste can be used for compost.
He then needs to add dry matter like dead leaves.
One of the principles of good compost is a good balance between soft, moist and nitrogenous matter and dry, hard and carbon matter.
The compost is left to mature for 6 months to a year and is then used in this community garden. 40 or so mini plots of land at the foot of the buildings. Last year we ate the lettuce we grew. We had tomatoes, we had so many, there was more than enough for everyone. Radishes. We live in Paris. It's pretty extraordinary. We are lucky.
Having this permanent connection with nature is so invigorating.
Jean-Jacques Fasquelle started Paris's first collective compost project 3 years ago, and similar schemes have since been set up in 70 different places across the capital. Hugues Perverne's hanging gardens are out of this world. We meet this outstanding landscaper and designer. Hugues Perverne is a landscaper with a magic touch. Armed with his secateurs, he designs spaces and gives new perspectives to pretty restrictive areas, like this little rooftop terrace in Paris.
Although it only measures 40 square meters, it seems bigger because we've created a slight trick on the eye. We have set up the plants in a way that makes the perspective longer. I have put up a mirror which gives a slight optical illusion, suggesting the garden leads elsewhere.
One of Hugues Perverne's specialties is making the most of small spaces, and he uses several techniques.
It's very important to use climbing plants in a small area. They don't take up much space on the ground, and they become very voluminous upwards. There's always a small trade-off. What shall I keep free so that I can move about, sit down with my friends, how many friends, and my family, the children, and how much space should I reserve for plant life, for the fantasy, the poetry.
Much thought and detail goes into the project. It's very well planned, like an architect. In his own urban garden in the Paris suburbs, each plant has its place and its function.
Here as well, I make sure there are gaps, so that these two parts are separated. This one too. You can see beyond this tree, but it also has great presence, and this gives a small garden more depth.
There are all sorts of different species in this garden, and we never see the same thing twice.
Even in a little garden, we can create what I call destinations.
The vegetable plot behind the gate, the secret hut hidden under the evergreen, and the terrace on the roof of the wooden shed.
I love the idea of going from one place to another. I go up the stairs, I reach a little gate, I pass under a leafy tunnel. All these mini happenings in a small place give the impression that we are travelling a little further.
And these cabins to get away from it all, made-to-measure cabins are another one of Hugues Pavern's specialties.
I've noticed that cabins are very popular nowadays, as they are the complete opposite of how we live today. It's like a return to basics.
And with the stress of city life, nothing beats a little time out in the garden to let your imagination run wild.
Sometimes I imagine I'm a butterfly or a bee, gathering pollen from the flowers in my path.
Another vision of urban life as seen by Hugues Pavern.